Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I don't know why, but I have my Sharona stuck in my head. Today, we're going to be looking at the Ace of Wands as the obstacle and the Three of Coins, or Pentacles. I think I'm just going to start calling them coins. I mean, really, it's the coin symbol that's important, not the fact that it's got a pentacle stamped on it. But yeah, let's get started. So, Ace of Wands. Uh, I like to see this card as, first of all the aces. I see the aces as like attention. It's like attention is being pulled in one direction. You know, you're kind of you're kind of in this field. You're just there, and then all of a sudden, your eyes catch something interesting in some direction. Uh, You are now you have an aim. You're facing somewhere. You're ignoring everything else. You have a focus, right? And I think this is a card that symbolizes you're facing the direction. What do you want to symbolize? I mean, I like to think of literal forests, um, and the aspects of forests that are animal-like. They're they're kind of, especially thick forests. It can be difficult to navigate. You might have to navigate on instinct. Um, there's there's a lot of nature there, and nature, it's the kind of nature where it's animalistic. It's not sophisticated human highbrow nature. There's no relationships. I mean, animals certainly, they pair bond, but it's nothing like the kind of relationships I think that are symbolized by the cups. Uh, animals exhibit all sorts of behavior that is highly specialized, and to us often appears as though it's the byproduct of abstraction, design ideas. But for the most part, that's not the case. You know, and uh, and the things that are valued in nature by animals. Maybe we're talking about like the ace of coins, the two, maybe the three, but it's there's a it's a primitive. I see the forest as a primitive place of instincts and impulses, um, raw raw animal behavior, and that kind of animalistic sexuality that is that we can sort of separate away from all of the romantic aspects of sexuality and relationship in the cups, and the kind of abstractions and poetry of the swords, and the valuable aspects of like family, and this is just like the drive, just the impulse, those sexy feelings. I mean, you look at the card, it's like a big phallus just appearing out of nowhere, right? It's this kind of like arousal, spontaneous inspiration in the direction of where the wild things are, and this is the aspect of the card of this archetypal human experience that is the it's this is the negative aspect of it. I think most of us are pretty familiar, intimately familiar with how thinking with your thinking with your metaphorical wand can get you into trouble. How making that choice, or I mean, often it's not a choice. In the short video, I said, like, all due respect to the card that could essentially be the most difficult to refuse or turn down, or uh, this card might be the silliest one to consider as something you could consciously and rationally contemplate, because the experience it's pointing at is, essentially being taken over by this creative subconscious urge, this passion or whatever. Um, so so I think that in its purest form, this card probably symbolizes those times in our lives that we could be probably familiar with where we couldn't even resist the urge. And so obviously there's a high degree of potential for all sorts of trouble and danger that can arise from that. It's also it's also an incredibly, on the bright side, this is quite possibly the urge that drives, there's plenty of arguments, plenty of poetry, plenty of debates about what what moves the world of mankind, right? Like why do people build things, invent things? Why do wars happen? And often the answer is, well, money. Of course, it's money. But there are other urges, and I think this one symbolizes something that is often much more primal. Doesn't require, there's a certain amount of abstraction uh, that you need to be capable of making to value money, because like $100 bill in your hand doesn't you can't eat it, you can't fuck it. Maybe some people can. You can't chop down a tree with it. It's not a weapon. It does, it's like it's only in its value that like we understand. We can translate it into something of value, but I think the Ace of Wands symbolizes like a much more direct and primal urge. So as a thing that drives people to do things, both great things and terrible things, I think this is a very important force to to be aware of, to pay attention to contemplate regularly. Um, but yeah, but insofar as this is the obstacle, this is like keep it in your pants, or at least try and resist certain urges long enough to just to reflect on them a little bit, and then less less so in the sort of sexual realm, even insofar as this applies to creativity. There's a lot of creative individuals that engage in creative thought, or I guess it would be more like, maybe like making music. I'm a musician. I think I can relate to that. But like being good at improvising musically, being able to pick up a guitar or something and just jam along with people, that's certainly a skill that's sort of, it's governed by this type of energy. It's just this immediate instinctive passion and drive. It's absolutely necessary for something like improvisation, or being really good at martial arts, having those instincts. But uh, insofar as this could be a warning, I think it could serve as a reminder to us that um, that over specializing in being all, you know, loosey goosey improvisational all the time, uh, it's not gonna cover everything, and you will be missing out of all the areas in which the people with the advantage are the people who can resist the urge to just freestyle, write down the first thing that comes to their mind, do the first, and sit there and consciously work on things, repeatedly, refined things, like all the things that immediate creative improvisation ignores, essentially. So this is something that people can get really good at. You're a great improviser, and you're terrible at actually working and building things in a non-inspired state where you're just, chipping away, refining. Yeah, so there's a couple interpretations of this that I think are cool. And then this one for the in the short video I mentioned that if you look at maps of old cities, that they kind of look like spider webs, and the roads will all converge around points that had really important things, really important places. Uh, in Europe, I mean, maps of European cities versus North American cities, just more modern cities are generally they're designed on a large scale. They don't grow organically, so they're generally a big grid, and it's not as common to see that kind of spiderweb design. But that spiderweb design, organically grew around places of interest, often churches, markets, uh, places that offered safety or food or alcohol, or kind of depends from culture to culture, but it's whatever was valuable to the people living at the time in that area. You got some little towns that are built all around some gold mines, silver mines, salt deposits, whatever, but it's whatever the thing that was desirable. And for a lot of people now, like I said, we don't really live in cities that exhibit this sort of phenomenon in terms of the geography and the layout of the city. But now there's different types of roads that have, there's a different sort of way that you could approximate what is of value, or there's a multitude of new ways. But I mentioned like seeing seeing where money gets transferred. And I mean, that's obviously not something that most of us don't have the ability to just spy on all the bank transfer records and follow the money. Um, but we can see which companies are, it's pretty easy to find out which companies are doing well and which companies are doing poorly, which companies are going out of business, which services, for instance, right now, as I'm recording this, I'm in a place where there's still pandemic lockdowns. Most businesses are closed. The government has decided what is and isn't essential. So it's like if you want to buy a notepad and a pen, it's like, sorry, stores aren't allowed to sell you that because it's a non-essential item. Um, but but the government has allowed the liquor stores and the beer stores to remain open. Like being able to take stock of those those details of our geography, of our landscape, I think can be as informative, if not more so, than engaging in an act like looking at these old maps and being like, wow, everybody, you know, here's the pub, here's the market, here's the church. It seems like the church was the most important place at the time. Like that's an interesting thing to find out, and I think it's a valuable piece of investigating to do uh, when you're considering the world of value, the world of coins, the world of resources, right? Um, all the bars got closed down, um, and all the coffee shops stayed open. You can't go into the coffee shops, but you can get coffee out on the street. But because of the liquor laws, technically, even if the bars did sell alcohol on the street, but like, noticing something like that and maybe thinking forward and asking yourself the question, let's say if this sort of state of things continues, what will be some future business models that will thrive in an environment like this? Um, yeah, any sort of consideration of, we have so many opportunities. We have so many places where we could invest, both invest our money, like we could buy stocks, but like there's so many different companies you could buy stocks in. uh, Investing in cryptocurrency, there's so many different things, but also, if you're entrepreneurial and maybe you got a little bit of money to invest in starting a business, like, well, what kind of business are you going to start? Some people, they start businesses based on what they love to do, and I don't entirely think that's a bad idea. I really like the idea of investing in investing in businesses or starting businesses that perform services, offer services or products that you yourself consume regularly, so that it's like if you love being, I don't know, chauffeured around, you could start a limousine company, and then you will have drivers and cars that you could periodically take advantage of, let's say, right? Um, Mind you, and I think in that sort of approach to entrepreneurial business ownership, it's it's certainly important to consider how contemporary your tastes and likes and interests are, because feeling this passionate urge to start your own business selling some collectible that you've been a huge fan of for decades, but like that there's no one else. You don't know anyone in your city that shares this hobby. Like that might not be a good idea. Yeah, you might be telling yourself, but I'll start this business and then I'll let people know. I'll open people's eyes to this amazing thing. Might be a stretch, but if you perform this kind of reconnaissance of don't like there's this, I think it's a Steve Jobs thing, this quote, like, don't listen to focus groups, don't listen to people in general. I'm sure he's not the first person to have said it or thought of it. It's just that's what I think of first. But if you ask people what they want, what they think is valuable, they'll tell you all sorts of things, and those will probably not be the things that you should invest in. Like, people have biases. Often people can't even imagine what product they want. They might, like, how do you invent something as unique to the iPhone when everybody else had flip phones? They were like, oh yeah, like a smaller phone would be good. That's what I want. If you just try and cater to what people want, you'll never figure out that next big thing. But I think it's more likely to figure out the next big thing by engaging in that kind of topographical overview of what's the structure of the city. Where do all the streets converge, right? Except now it's like the streets are views and likes on posts. What's everyone resonating with? I saw this hilarious post the other day. Someone was saying, someone was asking for advice on how to rebrand their their business, their Twitter account. They started a Twitter account a while back that just ran on an automated script. Anytime Donald Trump posted something, it would automatically reply to his tweet saying, you're wrong, or you're an idiot, or just a bunch of sort of canned responses. But this guy was saying that within like the first year, he ended up getting something like 100,000 followers, and then he was selling T-shirts and hats, and he was monetizing it by offering merchandise related to this. Um, and then now, the kind of funny thing was, now he's like, now Donald Trump got kicked off of Twitter, so it's like, I don't know how to grow my business. but yeah, but like, I think that's an interesting, clever, you figure out where the attention is. I think that the traffic for Donald Trump's tweets um, was incredible. I think there was something like 1/3 of all Twitter users were subscribed to his account, and I'm sure a lot of them were following him just to hear the things that he's saying, so they could take them apart and disagree with them or whatever. I don't think they were all supporters and fans, but nonetheless, it's like recognizing, like, okay, so all roads lead to Rome. Okay, so then Rome is the thing that you should focus on and write about or criticize or praise or whatever. Um, yeah, that's my financial advice portion of interpreting uh, this card. Recognizing recognizing the changing, shifting values, because I gotta I guess incorporate that, the three. It's an active volatile card, but um, seeing which things have more longevity. Things are volatile, even though the market is volatile and always changing. Certain companies change at different rates. You know, was it like something like 90% of Fortune 500 companies don't last longer than 25 years? Like it's really rare to have something like an Apple or a Ford Motors or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting to analyze them and consider what it is that they're doing right, what it is that they're doing wrong, um, in preparation for making decisions of a financial nature. That's it for me today. Drop me a like if you enjoyed the video. Also, you can comment hashtag free reading for your chance to win a free one-on-one tarot reading. I'll be back tomorrow. Take care.